Hello everyone, and today we're bringing you a slightly different video, just in terms of the topic that the video is about, and we're going to be covering role-playing games today. So, as you probably ascertained from the title of the video, this is going to be a video about how to play a role-playing game for 2 months, assuming you play once a week, for absolutely free. I think this is a good opportunity. One, if you're looking to try out role-playing games or looking to try out specifically the game that I'm covering here, which is Call of Cthulhu, you can do so. See if you like role-playing games in general. See if you like this particular system with absolutely no expense to yourself. I think this is also a good opportunity if you know you are interested in either of these things, but cost is prohibitive to you. Perhaps you just don't have, the amount of free money available to you that would allow you to purchase some of the bigger books or even the PDFs that are produced for this game. So this is an opportunity to get yourself and your friends to the table in spite of that potential barrier. So, as I've said, the game we're going to be discussing is Call of Cthulhu. I've chosen Call of Cthulhu for two reasons. One, it's a game I'm very familiar with. I've been running a game of Call of Cthulhu ongoing for about 3 years almost at this point. So I'm very familiar with the system. I'm very familiar with the published material that's available for this setting. And I've run the majority of the free content that I'm going to be discussing, so I'm familiar with it and I can speak to its quality or lack thereof. The second reason is that Chaosium, the publisher of Call of Cthulhu, is, I would say, one of the better publishers insofar as making free material available for their games. You are going to be able to find free content for a lot of role-playing games. A lot of publishers, particularly smaller ones, make available either a abbreviated version of their rules with a scenario or an adventure of some kind for Free RPG Day, which happens once a year. So if you go to Free RPG Day, you'll be able to check that out if you want to look at a different system. And then a lot of publishers also do make available a free Quickstart for their products, which is going to contain those condensed rules and a short scenario for you to try out the setting. Those are almost always free of charge. So if you're looking to apply this to a different game, if Call of Cthulhu isn't of interest to you, but something else is, definitely look for that kind of Quickstart. And then on top of that, Chaosium does offer a decent amount of support in terms of free products for their other product lines. So if 1920s horror role-playing isn't to your taste, you are going to be able to find some free fantasy content in terms of RuneQuest or King Arthur Pendragon. There is a little bit of free content for both those games, as well as games like Seventh Sea, these kind of other product lines that Chaosium put out. That said, there is more free content available for Call of Cthulhu, as it is their main line, and it's what's received the focus in terms of offering free content. So that's another reason why, if you don't care as much about the game and just want to try, Call of Cthulhu could be a good one to look at, just because there's a lot more available for it than other product lines within Chaosium and from other publishers as well. So, as I've said, Call of Cthulhu is a horror role-playing game set in the 1920s. To play it, all you're going to need is a character sheet, which you can either find in a lot of these free scenarios pre-made for you, or if you want to make characters, there are free character sheets available on the Chaosium website. But wait, you say, how do I make characters? Don't I need a core rulebook to do that? Well, fortunately, there is a quick kind of generation method for characters available in the free Quickstart rules. You can find that on the Chaosium website. I will include links to every free product I mention here in this video description, so you'll be able to find all of those just by following the links below. So you'll need a character sheet of some kind, be it one that comes in one of these adventures pre-made for you, or if you want to make your own characters, you can download it for free from the Chaosium website. You'll need a pen, preferably a pencil, actually, and an eraser, just to make marks on that character sheet as you play. You'll need someone to run the game for you, and you'll need players. If you're watching this video, you're probably going to be the person running the game, but if not, feel free to, tell a suitable friend about this video so they can check it out and maybe, run the game for you. And then you're going to need some dice. Although that is something you can circumvent if you don't have physical dice. By going online, there are great websites and applications available that just roll dice for you. Random.org is a website that's free of charge and allows you to roll a dice of really any numeral you want. You can roll a 79-sided die if you want. And you can do that absolutely free, and it is quite good. It generates true randomness out of atmospheric noise, so that's nice. So physical dice are nice, not necessary though if you want to do this for free and you don't already have them. If you do want to pick up dice, just make sure you pick up a set that has a variety of dice. For Call of Cthulhu in particular, you'll probably want some D6s, some arguably you'll want dice of all sides, but you can get by with just a D6 and 2 D10s. It's great if one of those D10s is a different color, or if it is denominated with 100 sides instead of 10 sides. So that would mean it says 10, 20, 30, 40, and so forth, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10. You want in increments of 10 to 100, because Call of Cthulhu uses D100s for most of the rolls you're going to be making. In terms of the system, you just want to roll under your skill. So if you have a skill of 75 and you roll your D100, you just want to roll 75 or lower, and that means you passed. The really nice thing about this system is it means it's very intuitive how likely you are to succeed based on what your skill is. If I have a skill of library use at 55, I know that if I go to a library, I have a 55% chance of finding that information I'm looking for there. There's more details to the system, obviously. I can cover those in a separate video, which I'll put up in a little bit. And then the Quickstart rule set will also be very useful for you. It has everything you need to grasp the basics of the system and run a functional game. All right. So what else comes for free? So you've got the Quickstart rule set. That also contains a free adventure for your use. It's a classic adventure. It's written by Sandy Peterson, who was the creator of Call of Cthulhu back in the day. And that adventure is The Haunting. Most people who have played Call of Cthulhu have played this adventure. It's a great adventure, and you'll be able to, have great conversations with other people who've played the game, because surely they've also played this. But even though that's in the Quickstart rules, that's probably not what you're going to want to start with. It is a longer adventure. It is very deadly. It has multiple locations, and it also requires you to create your own characters for it. It does not come with pre-made characters. I think that's a drawback to that Quickstart rule set, because it means that you will need more buy-in immediately from your players, and it's also going to be a little bit harder for you to run if you're not familiar with the system, and if you're just not familiar with running role-playing games. So I think there's a better way to go about this, even just using the free material that's available. So I think the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab that Quickstart rule set so you have the rules. And then if you're planning on running games, or even if you're planning on playing them, you should play through Alone Against the Flames. This is available on the Chaosium website. There's a link in the description that will take you right to it. And this is basically a choose-your-own-adventure book. It's a solo play scenario, which means just like a choose-your-own-adventure book, you're going to go through, make choices, and they're going to lead you to different paragraphs of text. The only real difference here is that you are going to make some dice rolls at some intervals. And that, in addition to the choices you're going to make, is going to determine where you're going to go next. So by playing through this, you'll get a little bit of feel for the flavor of the game, and you should be gradually, as you play through, familiarizing yourself with the basic mechanics of the game. So skill tests, sanity tests, these kind of things that are the staple of Call of Cthulhu, you're going to be able to learn on your own time, just playing through this choose your own adventure. There's no time pressure. You can flip through that Quickstart rulebook and make sure you fully grasp everything as you proceed. And the choose your own adventure, Alone Against the Flames, is also trying to kind of teach you as you go. So you should be getting some help there. It's written by Gavin Inglis. He is a writer who has written another one of the Chaosium's solo adventures, Alone Against the Frost. He helped to revise for a new edition. That is also a very good solo adventure. I think it's better than Alone Against the Flames, but it is not free. So Alone Against the Flames will definitely suffice. If you play through Alone Against the Flames and love that concept, you can pick up Alone Against the Frost. I'll review that on this channel at a later date. But I think it's very good value for what you pay if you really enjoy the solo playthrough kind of thing. Or if you just like the idea of role-playing games but you don't have a group, this offers you some ability to kind of engage in a similar experience. So, now you've played through Alone Against the Flames. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned the basic rules by playing through it, maybe even played through it a couple times to see the different kind of outcomes that you can get. Now, if you're planning on running the game for your friends, there's a lot more for you to read, but if you just want to be a player and you know a friend has watched this video and is going to run these for you, your work here is basically done. You don't want to read any of these. You're going to give away all the spoilers of the scenarios. So really, you're done with this particular video, and just send the person who's going to run the games to this video, and they can get the information they need from here on. Okay, so you're planning on running some scenarios for your friends. You've gone through Alone Against the Flames. What you're going to want to do next is the convention scenario that's available for free. And basically, a convention scenario just means it's a shorter scenario. It's designed to be played at a convention by people who either are new to the game or just want a quick game while they're at the convention. And you're going to want to use the convention scenario, What's in the Cellar. This is a short scenario. It has pre-made characters, so your players aren't going to have to make characters. You're taking away the necessity of them having to make that commitment and the potential for them to make mistakes in the character creation with a system they're not familiar with. You're just going to hand them out characters who already have backstories that tie them into this particular scenario, and they're just going to play them from there. So it's perfect. You just invite your friends over, hand out their character sheets, and you're good to go. This should be playable in about an hour. It's a very short scenario. It starts with a short little scene, and then you go straight to the location. The rest of the scenario takes place at that location, and it's a very small location, and really, as you can tell by the title, most of the scenario takes place in the cellar. So this should be very easy for you to run. There's not a lot to keep track of, which is very nice for the first time you're running a game and getting used to doing this, if that is the case. And even if you have run a lot of games before, it can be nice to start out simple in a newer system, as you're also familiarizing yourself with the rules and trying to make sure you're getting those right. It's just saving you from having to keep track of, oh yeah, and I've got all these moving plot elements in my head. This scenario is written by John Hook. He runs the Miskatonic University podcast, which is a podcast that covers Call of Cthulhu and Lovecraftian horror, role-playing games in that vein. He is a good writer of scenarios. He has some other published scenarios for Chaosium. And this scenario is doing exactly what you need it to. It is not the strongest Call of Cthulhu scenario, I will say that. There's fairly limited investigation, and really the scenario amounts to looking around a cellar, finding some evidence, things that are a little amiss, and then you go into a combat encounter with a monstrous entity. That said, it's really good in terms of it should only last about an hour. It is giving you the horror element that you are hopefully looking for if you're playing this game. And it's allowing your friends to try out the game, try out the system with you running it, and see if they like the gist of what's going on, all in about an hour's time. For that reason, I think it's great to start with what's in the cellar. If everyone plays it and they have fun, you're going to want to move on to a slightly longer convention scenario that's also available for free, and that is Dead Border. This scenario is by Todd Gardner, who I am not familiar with any of his other work, but it's co-written by Mike Mason. Mike Mason is the creative director for the Call of Cthulhu line at Chaosium, and he's also the lead Call of Cthulhu line editor. Mike Mason has written some excellent Call of Cthulhu scenarios. This is not one of those, but it is again doing what you want it to do as a short convention scenario and kind of further introducing your group to Call of Cthulhu. This scenario has a little more going on in it. Again, it has pre-generated characters, which is great. And these pre-generated characters are really nice because they have motivations that are drawing them to interact with each other in interesting ways, and also giving them a strong motivation to investigate their neighbor in this 1930s Depression era boarding house who hasn't been seen for a while. So not only are your characters going to have a hook to engage with the scenario just through their characters, but they also have kind of different motivations to engage with the scenario, and that should create some nice drama for you, even aside from the horror that's going to happen as they go into this missing person's room and find the dead border, as the scenario title would suggest. Again, it's a little light on the investigation. I think the potential for interaction between your players in interesting ways is a little better than what's in the cellar. So there's a little more going on there for you to manage, even if it's not the internal, shall we say, mechanics and moving parts of the scenario. It's actually the player motivations and the way they're interacting with each other. But even so, I think it is a little bit of a step up in complexity from what's in the cellar. Again, this is a pretty short scenario, probably playable in an hour and a half. That time may vary just how much you allow your players to kind of role play out their drama with each other before you spring the monster on them to kind of generate the conclusion of the scenario. But again, it shouldn't be too hard to run. It is giving you a nice taste of condensed horror with a little bit of investigation and character drama, and hopefully a fun evening for your players. Now, it is worth mentioning that both Dead Border and What's in the Cellar were slightly revised. The handouts, which are basically kind of the physical clues that you might give your players, are improved. In this Gateways to Terror, 3 Evenings of Nightmare. This is 3 selected convention scenarios that Chaosium has published in this book for Call of Cthulhu. 2 of them are available in There are earlier iterations. I've discussed those earlier iterations for free. So you are getting better value if you run them for free. That said, if you really like the idea of kind of a little bit more going on, you can see they've included color handouts, they've included pictures. There's a little bit more advice on how to run the game in here, and you get nice color artwork, which you're missing from the free versions of these files. This is a cheap book to pick up, and it's even cheaper as a PDF. So if you want to spend a little bit, you could grab this. I think it's slightly improved versions of those two scenarios, but there's absolutely no need to do that. What you're getting for free is more than functional. All right, having run those two convention scenarios, you're going to bypass the third convention scenario that's available on the Chaosium website for now. It's a more complex scenario, and there's some problematic elements to it I'll discuss later in this video. But what you're going to want to do next is run the Lightless Beacon. The Lightless Beacon is a scenario written by Leigh Carr. I'm not familiar with other scenarios by Leigh, but also Lynn Hardy. And Lynn Hardy is the associate line editor for Call of Cthulhu, and she has also produced good scenarios for both Call of Cthulhu, including Scritch Scratch, but also other Lovecraftian horror lines. A little information about Lightless Beacon. It's not in the same tab of the free Cthulhu Adventures. It's in its own tab, and that tab is We Are All Us. And that's because in 2019, it was a free scenario released in honor of the first anniversary of the death of Greg Stafford, who was the founder of Chaosium. And basically, Chaosium was trying to incentivize people to play a role-playing game in Greg's memory. It's a very nice initiative, and they published one free scenario for each of their product lines in honor of Greg. This is a pretty good scenario. I think it's better than the two convention scenarios. It's just a little more complex in terms of it takes place over the entirety of an island. There's more investigative elements, and there's not a combat encounter. You just spring on your players and it happens. Rather, you have to keep track of adversaries as they kind of move around. That said, still a pretty simple scenario. It does, again, come with pre-generated characters. So again, very nice for your players. They can just come to the table, sit down, and they're on their way with their pre-made characters, their motivations, and it really requires no more work from your players. I think the themes of Lovecraftian horror run stronger as well in Lightless Beacon than the two convention scenarios. So basically, you're going to be gradually ramping your group up into a full-fledged Call of Cthulhu experience as you work your way through this. After Lightless Beacon, I would run Scritch Scratch. You can see I have a physical copy of Scritch Scratch here. If you want it for free, you're going to be running it off the PDF. And of course, all of these are going to be run off PDF if you want them for free. But if you are someone who likes physical copies, both Scritch Scratch and the Derelict were released for Free RPG Day in different years by Chaosium. And if you're someone who loves physical books, you can basically pick these up at cost plus shipping, plus maybe a minor little margin for profit from a print-on-demand service. I think both of these are available on lulu.com. I'll include a link for the print-on-demand files in the video description as well. But basically, these represent very affordable books to pick up if you're willing to pay the shipping to have them sent to you. But you don't need the physical book. You can run this off PDF It's exactly the same file, you're just running it off a PDF. You could even print it out off your printer at probably lower cost than the print on demand. So Scritch Scratch, unlike the other scenarios, Scritch Scratch is set in the modern day, so it's an interesting change of pace. Again, it comes with pre-made characters, which is great. And Scritch Scratch is a little more complex in that there are multiple locations. The investigative elements in Scritch Scratch are a lot stronger than they have been in the scenarios to date. Your players will have to go to multiple locations, even to another town, actually, to start to piece together what's going on. But the benefit of Scritch Scratch is that the conclusion as written allows you to spring the final confrontation at any location and at really any point of time of your choosing. So whether your players are completely engaging with the plot or are just wandering around doing their own thing, you will for sure be able to get to that climatic scene, and you will for sure be able to get the horror of confronting the antagonist in Scritch Scratch. I think Scritch Scratch is a really good convention scenario. Again, it's not the strongest example of a really good Call of Cthulhu scenario because it's designed for shorter play, and while there are investigative elements, there are less than in many of the really strong Call of Cthulhu scenarios. It is a convention scenario, but it is a longer one. I would say for both Lightless Beacon and Scritch Scratch, you should be setting aside 3 hours, if not more, to play through these. So now you're getting a little bit more bang for your free buck from these guys. All right. From there, you're going to probably want to run the other free RPG day scenario, and that is the Derelict. The Derelict concerns finding a derelict ship and finding out that there is a horror lurking within it. There's strong alien-esque themes for those familiar with the Alien movies from this scenario, and I think this is the best of the scenarios I've discussed to date. The Derelict is a really good scenario insofar as the themes of horror. It shouldn't be hard to scare your players with this scenario and create a really atmospheric mood. The scenario is giving you some suggestions to help do that as well, which is nice. You are confined to really a single, albeit large location, but you're given, maps of this derelict ship. You're given descriptions of what's going to be found in each of these rooms. So it's not too hard to keep track of. The reason I'm suggesting you run this later after the other scenarios is that you not only have to keep track of the monster yourself as it moves around the ship, but the scenario doesn't give you pre-written encounters in the same way that the others do. A lot of the other scenarios so far that we've discussed, you get to the end and the scenario says, okay, now you're at the end, this big confrontation or this climatic scene happens here. It's very easy to run, if not a little bit railroaded. The Derelict does not do that. The Derelict gives you advice on how to handle a monster, but expects you as the person running the game to make intelligent decisions with what the monster is doing throughout the game, to kind of build horror using your own imagination. Gives you a few examples of things you can do and points you can do them at, but it's expecting a lot more from you in being the person who's creating that atmosphere throughout the scenario rather than relying on the scenario exactly as written to do a lot of the work for you, which is nice at first, but once you're a little more experienced, which hopefully you are at this point, I think you should be able to manage this scenario well in a really creepy way. And I think this scenario has the potential to be a lot of fun for your players. After running the Derelict, you have the option to run Camp Sunny. My reservation about Camp Sunny is that the primary theme of the scenario is sexual assault, and that will be problematic for a lot of groups. So I would be very careful before running this. If you know your group well, if you have a discussion with your group and they say that's a topic they're comfortable with, and you think you can go about that in a tasteful way, then this is another option for you, but it's just something to be very aware of, that this will not be for everyone. But it is, if you want to get 8 free products and get your 2 months out, then Camp Sunny will get you there. Camp Sunny is the 3rd convention scenario that's available on the Chaosium website. It is not in Gateways to Terror. The 3rd convention scenario in here is the Necropolis, which I don't think is a particularly strong offering, although I would say the same about Camp Sunny. Camp Sunny takes place at a summer camp, and is basically a sandbox scenario as your young adult pre-generated characters make their way around that summer camp and find out that not everything is right there. What I will say about Camp Sunny is I don't think it's the strongest scenario. I don't think there's a strong amount of horror for you to use if you're running this scenario as written. I think some of the motivations of the non-player characters are a little bungled, and I think that it's really overly reliant on the idea of sexual assault as horror, which, as I've already discussed, is probably going to be problematic for a lot of groups. I think this is really not a strong offering from Chaosium, but if you read through the scenario and disagree, or if you are looking to get to that 8 weeks and think your group will be okay with this one, it is something you can run. I'm suggesting running this later because it is a sandbox with multiple locations. There are multiple adversaries, and there are not a lot of true horror elements that are pre-written into the scenario. It's expecting you as the person running the game to be generating a lot of it on your own. So it is a little harder, and like I said, I don't know if there's a lot here to make this one as worthwhile as many of these to run. Finally, you have the Haunting. The Haunting is the scenario included in the Quickstart rules. It's arguably one of the stronger scenarios here. It's a classic scenario, as I've already discussed. The reason I suggest you run this last is you have a number of locations to keep track of. You have a very deadly adversary that is probably going to wipe out your players. They might not like that. And this is the only scenario that does not come with pre-generated characters. So I think you probably want to build up your players, build up their familiarity with the system, build up what kind of skills are useful, and just build up their level of comfort, their willingness to commit to this game before you tell them to use the simplified character creation in the Quickstart rules and have them make a character. I think the Haunting is maybe a particularly problematic scenario to run first, because if you tell your friends to all make a character and then run the Haunting and probably kill all their characters, they might not want to come back and play the game. That might not be enjoyable for them, even though that is often what can happen in Call of Cthulhu. I think you want to teach them the themes of the game before you make them create characters they may lose. All right, so there you have it. There's 8 scenarios to run. And I should say, I think I missed it, that the Derelict is written by Sandy Peterson as well, and that Camp Sunny is written by Paul Fricker and Mike Mason. Paul Fricker was one of the contributors to the 7th edition of the Call of Cthulhu rules. All right, so there you have 8 scenarios. I'll cover these all in greater detail, things I like and dislike about them, from the perspective of the Keeper of Arcane Lore, that is to say the game master or person running the game from the group. So if you plan on running these and want my more detailed assessment of them, stay tuned. I'll do that in the next few days. But otherwise, hopefully this video was useful to you. I've included all the product links. You can find these for free at, as well as the print-on-demand links in the video description. If you have other thoughts about these scenarios, questions about how to go about this, questions about the rules, and I will try to cover the rules in a future video, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments section. And until then, hopefully this was an informative and useful video for you, and happy gaming.